This is the Guns Magazine podcast, episode number 76. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent T. Thanks for joining us as we talk to the interesting people who make up the world of shooting, hunting, and the firearms industry. First, before we get started, let's talk about our sponsor, Berger Bullets. Berger builds match-grade rifle bullets and ammunition for target, hunting, and tactical shooting applications. Proudly made in Mesa, Arizona, Berger uses the highest quality materials, tooling, and production processes to build the world's most accurate bullets and ammunition. Berger's unequaled by the competition and has established more long-range world records than all other manufacturers combined. To find out why our nation's elite operators, competitive shooters, and hunters all trust Berger to shoot better, visit your favorite retailer to experience Berger's uncompromising quality or learn more at bergerbullets.com. Well, there's no joy in today's podcast as we talk about the NRA and their bankruptcy proceedings, which started this week. In today's episode, I talked to Jim Shepard. He's one of the few firearms media folks who's been willing to discuss the situation publicly. I really did key in on one thing he said early in our talk when he admitted we've all been reluctant to criticize the NRA because of our love and belief in the organization, but perhaps we've done a disservice to our cause in the long run. All the dirt's coming out this week in a Texas bankruptcy hearing as people, including Wayne LaPierre himself, testify under oath how hundreds of millions of your dollars have been spent. If you read some of the things that have been said, I would say you probably won't agree with how some of those dollars have been spent. Let me make clear I completely, wholeheartedly support the NRA, its members, and certainly its mission. But if you educate yourself on the facts that have been documented this week, I think you'll agree with me it's come time for Wayne LaPierre to go. Now take a listen to my talk with Jim Shepard and see if you don't agree. Well, good morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm fine, Brent. How are you?
Well, today, Jim, we're going to talk about something you're well-versed in and something that we've all been talking about, but yet I've got to say there's been little coverage of this particular development in the, I would call, what right-wing news there is, or conservative news, or even just fair news. There's been a lot made out of it in the liberal media, and that's the bankruptcy proceedings against the NRA. And basically, the dirt is starting to come out. And kind of my position on this whole podcast, and the reason we're doing this, is we have been hesitant as shooters, as gun industry people, to really criticize the NRA because we all completely agree we need the NRA more than ever. And there's a lot of good folks, even on the national level, that haven't done anything wrong. And it's something that we so sorely need. But I think it's getting to the point, I want to rally the troops, the 5 million NRA members and shooters everywhere, and rally them and say, look, the organization's great, but the executive suite needs to go. And we're going to talk about some of those reasons today. And Jim, I got to say, you've been one of the few that have kind of just called it what it is, and I'm sure you've caught some backlash for that. He laughs.
You know, I did a piece this week that has been picked up in a couple of other places, and it's getting a lot of traction. And the reason I haven't written about it more than I have is simple. The NRA and the fight with their old PR agency, Ackerman McQueen, and the NRA, well, not the NRA, Wayne LaPierre's fight with dissidents on the board, with former President Oliver North, and with everybody else, has all been very much inside baseball to me. Mm-hmm. And I try to stay away from things that don't affect people. I think we've done everybody a disservice by keeping hands off on this, because it's affecting not only the 5 million members, it's affecting everyone who owns a gun, because we are crippled in a fight for the Second Amendment. We need the NRA. I respect the NRA. I support the NRA. But it's time to do some house cleaning.
Yep.
And the reason I wrote the piece I wrote this week is simple. Up to the point of the bankruptcy hearing convening and people actually going under oath It's been like a divorce. He said, she said.
Right.
One guy would say this, one guy would say that, and it's all been played out in the media. The NRA is in the unfortunate position of having a great PR law firm that apparently is full of bumbling idiots. Because I think a second-year law student could dismantle the NRA in open court based on the testimony of the executives.
Oh, my.
And what is coming out in all of this is all of the dirty laundry is now being dumped in the public square under oath. Because you can deny something all you want if you're just talking to people. But if you do that to a judge, you say yes, and it turns out you said no the first time, that's perjury.
Yep, and that's a crime.
And everybody is looking down the barrel of a legal gun now, and it's real.
Yeah.
The testimony is ridiculous. It's obvious that the board, 70 people, have been following the orders of one man. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not fair to attach all of the wrongdoing to Wayne LaPierre any more than it is, to blame a despot for all the bad things that his troops did. But no one stood up to him.
Yep.
And because of that, the NRA is in a hell of a mess. There's no other way to say it. There is a good chance, and people are not going to like this. They're going to yell fake news. They can yell it if they want to. The state of New York has a better than 50-50 chance now of dismantling the entire organization because the board for 10, 15, 20 years has let these abuses go on. The reasons are kind of obvious when you read the testimony. They liked being in the cool kids club and having all the VIP benefits that come along with being a board member. It's a very cool thing on your resume. And some of them were bellied up to the trough of the money that the NRA was shoveling out the door to favored people.
Yep.
Well, that ain't good. And I'm sorry if it offends 5 million of the 5 million members. You need to wake up and realize this is not fake news. This is thievery. This is your organization, your dollars being looted by the administration, by the executives. There are people, good professional people at the NRA that are still turning out good professional work under abysmal conditions. They've had their wages cut. They've got their lives up in the air. They've had their benefits cut. They've had their retirement stopped, and they still work because they believe in the mission. They don't believe in the leaders anymore, and they're not going to say that because they're still the leaders, and you're still punished if you come across the company wrong. But it's not their faults any more than it's the faults of the 5 million members. Of course, it's the faults of all of us for looking the other way.
Exactly, and that kind of gets to my point that I was stunned and amazed when I read your editorial the other day. I didn't even realize the proceedings had started since I hadn't followed it that closely. I knew it was coming up, but I suddenly realized you were the only person that I know of in the firearms media genre that even reported on it, and that just struck me as so unbelievable, I guess. And I've been thinking about it, and I guess I realized this is the way I can put it is the NRA is like your dangerous horse thief, criminally insane, and violent grandfather. We know he's bad, but we can't talk about him because he's family. But I think we've gotten to the point we need to start talking.
Sparrow and your crazy aunt in the basement. The NRA is at this juncture, right now, today, on this Friday when we're talking, its own worst enemy because the entrenched leadership is fighting for its very life. And the old Chinese expression, when you corner a rat, you fight a tiger.
That's true.
It gets real when you see the rope at the top of the gallows and you realize your foot's on the first step.
Yep.
Everybody, it all started, it blew up 2 years ago in Indianapolis when the Oliver North thing came out and Wayne accused Oliver of trying to blackmail him and all this other stuff. It was like, oh, this is not going to end well for anybody.
Yeah.
And it hasn't, and it's far from ended. But, it's only the members can clean it up.
Exactly.
I think. Well, let me put it this way. If the members don't clean it up, the Attorney General of the state of New York will.
Yep.
And we do not want that to happen, because her goal, in addition to seeing Wayne LaPierre in shackles marching out of the headquarters in Virginia, is to dismantle the organization and to pass its body parts off to other groups.
Mm-hmm.
The thought of the NRA being dissolved and a portion of the NRA's DNA being passed over to organizations like Giffords makes me sick at my stomach, makes me physically ill.
Yep. And I guess that maybe explains some of the reluctance of our side of the fence to even discuss this. But again, I go back to my thesis of there is so much that is coming out under oath that we can't ignore it any longer. And I'm looking, I've got several pages of things we'll never even get to, but the top of it is a quote that I'm unfortunately, I didn't write down who to attribute it to, but it was in a news report. It says, essentially, the NRA operates as a kingdom rather than a corporation. And from what my reading is, and I've not read as much as you, but just a cursory glance at the paperwork tells you that's exactly what's happened. And as Exhibit A, I would point out the fact the board didn't even know they were filing bankruptcy until after the fact. I've been on nonprofit boards. You've been on nonprofits. That is not the way that's supposed to work.
Well, it gets even better, because the NRA's counsel, in-house counsel, their own lawyer wasn't told.
Yeah.
Their CFO didn't know.
Yep.
I was on the phone with a board member asking them about the bankruptcy, and their response was, "What bankruptcy?"
Oh, my Lord. Wow.
So how bad is it? It is so bad, and it is so out of control that the board called a meeting and basically approved the bankruptcy after the fact.
Yeah.
It was a single topic board meeting. Actually, there were two topics. The first topic was everybody shut up and stop talking to the media. And two, you've got to approve this bankruptcy after the fact. And that's when it started to blow up. Now, all this happened just before the court hearing in Texas. And some of the people listening to this may not even understand what's going on. Let's do a little basic groundwork here. The NRA is being persecuted, if you listen to Wayne. They're being investigated in the state of New York for abuses of the nonprofit status. Well, clearly there are abuses there of some sort. How bad? That's up to the court. The NRA takes a look at this with their genius counsel and decides, oh, we've got a great idea. Actually, the genius counsel decided it and dictated it to the executives, who then will tell the board eventually, here's a great idea. Let's constitute a company in Texas to give us a little standing and go down to Texas and file for bankruptcy. That'll get us away from those evil meanies in New York. And that's what the hearing is in Texas. The hearing in Texas will determine whether or not the bankruptcy filing was in good faith. If it comes down to the fact that the judge rules this filing was in bad faith, Katie, bar the door.
Yeah.
Because you have no right to protection under bankruptcy for a period of time after a bad faith filing. In other words, if this fails, there is nothing to protect the NRA from what goes on in New York.
Oh, my. That will be bad.
There is no shield after that. No amount of lawyering can protect you from no protection.
Yeah.
That I keep blaming the lawyers, but it's their faults.
Yeah. Well, your point of the persecution, I think we all agree, yeah, they're being persecuted by Letitia James. But all she's doing is taking an opportunity that she was handed. Yeah, she hates the NRA, wants to see it go away, blah, blah, blah. There's no debate in that. I think it's absolutely politically driven.
Well, no.
No,
absolutely. But you know what? That doesn't make it fake news.
Exactly.
If your neighbor doesn't like you, and makes no secret of the fact he'd like to get you out of the neighborhood, okay, good fences make good neighbors.
Yeah.
However, that does not make it okay for you to try to set fire to your neighbor's house.
Yeah.
And if you do that and they catch you on your Ring camera and it's obviously you and you can't deny it, you haven't done anything except set to them on a silver platter the eviction theory they're going to use to get you out of the neighborhood.
Exactly.
And that's what the NRA has done. They fought so hard, and they invariably fall back on the we're being persecuted argument that the facts of the matter get buried in the rhetoric.
Yep.
And that's the technique the NRA's used with the members. That Wayne has always used that. We're being persecuted. We are being persecuted. But what you're doing is wrong. What you've done is wrong.
Having done a lot of investigations in my day, I kind of wonder if there's a little bit of folks being reminded, well, you agreed to this, so now we're all in this together. And, the NRA's aggressive efforts to stifle any I can't believe anybody other than Josh Powell has not come out yet and said, look, this happened, because I think everybody's got a little bit of dirt on their hands. And people are afraid to. But I can tell you one thing from, again, having done a lot of investigations, when there's any kind of group that's involved in something, people will start talking. When it gets to the point that it's starting to look really ugly, they will beat a path to their attorney, who will then call, the opposing side and say, look, we need a deal here, and we're going to tell you what we know. And that's going to happen. It will happen, no doubt.
Well, the problem with that is, in their testimony, they have given so many tacit admissions to wrongdoing, they don't need a rat. They've got a cage full of rats. And as you know, in any investigation, you only need one rat.
Yeah, that's all you need.
You don't need any more after that. So somebody has already come forward. I'm not certain who it is, but several board members have already rolled, who have gotten off the board, thinking that gets them off the X ring. Well, it may move them to the 10 ring. It doesn't get them out of the X. They're still they're in the 10 ring. They may be out of the dead center hit, but they're still in there.
Yeah.
Because it's such a pattern of wrongdoing, and it's been going on for so long. Now, the whole question is, well, what's the liability for all these board members? I wish I knew. I can't draw that up into one neat package, because the goal of the bankruptcy is to get rid of the New York litigation. If that happens, the NRA reconstitutes, and it's, oh boy, happy days are here again. If you're one of the 5 million NRA members listening to this, let me tell you, this would be the worst possible outcome that could happen. The NRA needs a house cleaning. The board's too big. The executive suite needs to be emptied. There needs to be a tiny board of people willing to make the right decisions, some hard ones, and an executive that's there to do exactly what they are told by the board of directors. That's what you need. Anything less than that, you're shoveling your money down an empty hole again. They're just going to go right back to what they were doing, and they'll go back emboldened.
Yep. I go back to personal experience of having dealt with, again, nonprofit boards. And the thing is, the rules are pretty much the same, whether it's, the local food bank or the NRA. And speaking from experience, I've run into a situation where I had to talk to somebody and say, no, you work for us, not the other way around. And apparently that wasn't done here. And I also want to go on record. We both have friends who are board members, and I don't think they did anything wrong other than look the other way. And, I'm not looking forward to the angry emails I'll get after this, but hey, it's pretty straightforward.
Well, I don't think they're going to write me twice.
Yeah.
I've already gotten the angry emails from some of them.
Yeah.
And the problem is, yes, it stings. But you know what? When your parents paddled you, it was to teach you the difference in right and wrong. And you can be seduced by power or the image of power and the feeling of importance. I understand that. I have an ego. I have a healthy ego.
Yes, you do, Jim.
I like being told you're smart. I like being told you've done all this. I don't like having to report things that are negative about people I know are good people. But that doesn't make it any less true.
Yep.
It just makes it less pleasant. And I think that's our connection to humanity, is it bothers us. We're not talking bad about people. We're talking bad about decisions.
Yeah.
Good people make bad decisions all the time. But good people who continue to make bad decisions put themselves in bad positions.
Yep.
And nobody made any of these people run for the board. Nobody forced them to run. Some of them run, because they think they can make a difference. Those poor people I really pity. There were people who went on the NRA board thinking they could make a difference, and they got chopped off at the knees. They got talked bad about by other board members. They got intimidated. They had terrible things said about them that were not true.
Mm-hmm.
All to keep them in line or to keep them quiet. And eventually, it becomes a snowball express. The train's coming down the track. You can either step off the track or ride the cow catcher.
And we've seen it happen with very good people that, it's very Machiavellian in that if you're not with us, you are the sworn enemy. And that's how the NRA has operated for a long, long time, both externally and apparently now internally.
Well, it's operated internally that way for longer than any of us would like to acknowledge. And it's very uncomfortable for all of us. There's nothing pleasant about this. And you notice we've all avoided naming people. Now, I named Wayne LaPierre. Do I believe he is the ultimate evil in all of this? No. Wayne LaPierre is not the devil. He is an executive director who did a good job until he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
He had the opportunity in Indianapolis to turn the last year of his time at the NRA into the equivalent of a victory lap, a love fest. Instead, he slapped down the people who were telling him, we have to fix this. And now that the chickens are coming home to roost. That's the only way it works. You can't attack forever. And then when somebody counterattacks, yell, oh, they're picking on me.
Hey, but you burned down the neighbor's house. Yeah, but he was mean to me. Well,
yeah,
I don't think so.
You haven't seen mean yet. It was not coincidental on the 26th anniversary of the most infamous fundraising letter ever sent by the NRA. It was the 26th anniversary of Wayne LaPierre's jackbooted thug letter.
Yep.
And now, look what we're facing, Brent. One of those very jackbooted thugs has been nominated to be the head of the ATF.
Exactly.
I guess he'll have to resign his job with Giffords or whatever anti-gun group it is to go be the head of the ATF. Are you kidding me? And people say, well, it's not as bad as everybody says it is. No, it's worse.
Yeah.
We have an administration that is absolutely dedicated to disarming this country. This is the first shot. And everybody should remember that, well, those 6 things aren't that bad that President Biden issued. No, that's the first 6. If he gets away with 3 out of 5, he's going to turn the dogs loose on us. And then, the new director nominee said after Waco that the reason they weren't better at what they were doing was because the ATF Enforcement Division didn't have the tools they needed. What, tanks? That's not enough? You're going to come after me? You're coming at me? Lean into me, bro. Now you want to make things that had been legal illegal. Putting an anti-person in charge of a deal, especially a deal that controls tens of millions of us and turns us into potential criminals is stupid. That's lighting a fuse to a powder keg.
Exactly.
People are already irritated with the government. People are sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yep.
Despite the fact our quality of life's never been better, people have never been more unhappy.
That is absolutely true.
And you're giving them a reason to be crazy, not just unhappy.
Yep. Well, circling back to the NRA.
Sound like a couple of old farts, don't we?
You know what, though? Old, young.
Disgruntled, irregular old men.
Yeah. The only encouraging thing to me is, old, but young, white, black, male, female. I hear it a lot. And I don't think the politicians are. And that's what worries me for the future of our country. Our side hasn't got its dander up yet. But when it does, it will be an unpleasant moment in our history, and I hope we never get to that. But unfortunately, the current administration seems hell-bent to go down that road or die trying, and figuratively, I will say. But
I've heard an analogy that kind of describes the difference in liberals and conservatives. A liberal believes that violence and civil disobedience is kind of like a dimmer switch. You turn it up till you get what you want, and then you turn it back down. A conservative, a pro-2A person, a gun person, knows that's not the way it works. Violence has two settings, on and off.
Yep.
It doesn't dial up and it doesn't dial down. Just like when you pull the trigger and the pin breaks and hits the primer, the bullet goes out the end. You can't call it back any more than, as they say in law, you can unring a bell.
Yep.
We have an administration now that is determined to the point they're willing to risk everybody to get at some groups. And I think that's a dangerous situation. They're willing to do whatever it takes. They don't understand whatever it takes may be more than they think. Is the juice worth the squeeze, as they said? No.
One of the things that we talked about a few minutes ago was, unfortunately, Letitia James has been handed this opportunity on a golden platter. And I kind of wanted to run down some of that stuff because we've seen examples of this, especially in the left-leaning media. But now when people are talking under oath, this stuff is fact. And some of it, you told me in an email back and forth that some of it's comical, but most of it's very maddening. And I again, keeping with the theme of we, the little folks, have to rise up and make our voices heard. I wanted to talk about some of that stuff, and I've got this whole list. And like I said, you've dove deeper into this, but my favorite, Wayne likes to vacation on his producer friend's 108-foot yacht, and the reason he gave under oath was he was afraid for his security. Now, a lot of folks don't realize the senior administration at the NRA has a security team, and I will say that a couple of years ago, I was at an event and I met one of the people pretty far down the food chain at the NRA, and he had a team with him. And I thought, that seems a little much for somebody that's that far down the food chain. And I don't know what their threat assessment is, but I thought the interesting thing was he had to vacation on the yacht because he was fearful for his safety, but yet he also admitted he didn't even talk to his security chief about it. So which one is it, Basically, it appears to me, in my opinion, he wanted a vacation on a yacht, which, okay, take some time off and go. But unfortunately, we, the NRA members, paid for the private jet to get him there and have done that on numerous occasions.
Well, let me say this. When somebody says, I understand that there are threats against his life, maybe so. There are threats against every public official's life. And we have had enough public officials who have been killed by crazies to understand that you have to take that seriously.
Sure.
However, I have flown on a commercial jet with United States senators. They don't travel with a security detail. They don't fly in personal, jets. Wayne has not flown commercial in 2 decades. Jet travel is not cheap. Personal travel is It's ridiculous is exactly what it is. And a lot of it, if you see some of this stuff, a lot of the security detail, and you see the motorcade of the black SUVs come flying in, and the little trim guys with the curly cords running out of their ears, talking up their sleeves, jump out. And out gets the president of the NRA and me and another reporter, because we're friends of his. Please, let me tell you what, I only did it once. Man, it was intoxicating. Here, come on, let's get you through the crowd. I'm like, oh, yeah, I could be a celebrity. This could be fun.
Yep.
And a lot of people see that side of it.
Yep.
But the other side of it is, wait a minute, the people on the other side of the rope that are smiling and looking at you are the people who paid for your security.
Yeah.
What the heck is wrong with this? And, okay, maybe he needed extraordinary measures because he said extraordinarily nasty things about people. If you're the attack dog, people want you contained. But a lot of this security stuff is nothing more than eyewash and ceremony to keep the members impressed with how cool they are. Oh, my God, look what we have to do to protect our leaders, and they're going to battle for us.
Yeah.
Not when they're stealing with both hands, they're not. When they're spending money out, when they're spending $30,000 for the wedding planning of their assistant, and their assistant, by the way, can't pass a 4473. What are you doing working at the NRA if you've already been convicted of theft? And you mentioned Josh Powell. Josh Powell came in, and that's when things started to fall apart because people were like, wait a minute. This guy didn't know how to do what he's supposed to be doing, but that didn't stop him. And did Wayne get rid of him? No, he didn't get rid of him. He scooted him sideways and gave him a pay raise. That's hush money. And I'm sorry, people are going to be very angry at me for saying that. You read the 1,600 pages of testimony that I've read, and the depositions and the court stuff, and it'll turn your stomach. This would curdle cream. It's so blatant. And it's not an example of anybody being inherently evil. It's the problem of letting one person guide a great big ship without any advice.
Any oversight from the board?
No oversight. 1996, the move to fire Wayne LaPierre for incompetence, nothing else, failed by 3 votes. The board, a board member testified under oath that in 1996, the board recognized after the jackbooted thug letter that he was out of control and was quoting a managerial train wreck.
Wow.
And, he's fired, intimidated, or shut down all the opposition since then.
And done a good job of it, got to admit.
Oh, listen, as far as running a place with an iron fist, he can do it. And he's like any other executive. He did a great job until he didn't. It's just that the didn't end with the position. It's been going on for, 20 some years since then. I'm not that good at math because I still think I'm 50 years old.
Yeah, don't we all?
Maybe I'm not good at comprehension, but, it's an awful situation. I don't enjoy talking about it.
Well, exactly.
It sounds like I'm reveling in it, rolling in the blood of all these good people. No, I'm not. I'm embarrassed by it. I'm embarrassed as an NRA member. I'm embarrassed as a member of the Second Amendment supporting crowd. I'm embarrassed as a gun owner.
Exactly.
We talk about safety. We talk about awareness. We talk about being aware. And we've let all of this go simply because we didn't like the people who were telling us. Now, how stupid is that? Are you going to stand in a crosswalk when a guy you don't like yells, bus? We have.
That's a great analogy. And that's the whole reason we're talking today, because, our crazy grandpa, our crazy uncle, we've got to say, look, it's time to put him in the home. Okay. It's time to say, look, Wayne, good luck in your future endeavors. You need to go. But
and by the way, you're not getting that $1.2 million in perpetuity.
Yeah. Talk about that. The golden of golden parachutes.
Well, that's been revised. I understand that's been cut in half now.
How can he live on that?
So I don't know how he's supposed to get by if he only gets $670,000 for forever. But yeah, the golden parachutes that were cut, the deals that were cut. Woody Frazier, who is no longer at the NRA, was still cashing $600,000 checks as of a year ago in a separation agreement. What? The sweetheart deals continued. Josh Powell was still getting paid up until a few months ago, I think. And I say I think, I'm couching that, but I know he was. He was gone for a while and still getting paid. When that book came out, he was still getting paid.
Yeah. And talk a little bit about the legal bills that the outside counsel, they are charging crazy amounts of money to basically defend Wayne and the insiders.
Well, I recall that there was a decision made not to do something because the cost could be as much as $3.4 million. And they said that was an outrageous cost they simply couldn't bear. They wrote a check bigger than that for 1/4 of the Brewer firm's legal bills. $4 million a quarter for your lawyers. And, the rates that came out for the Brewer firm they're lawyer rates. They're high-end, C-suite lawyer rates.
Yeah.
From anything from, I think the lowest rate is $860 an hour. That's for the assistant to go make coffee, up to $4 an hour. Well, I can do a lot of lawyering for $4,000 an hour.
Yeah.
That's a good rate.
One thing that I saw in the testimony that was very intriguing, and nobody's really referenced it, was somebody under oath did claim that the Brewer firm has burn books on folks in the NRA. That tells me if somebody starts cooperating with the other side, there's going to be a lot of negative stuff come out, and that's a pretty strong reason to keep the wagons circled.
Well, we have seen some of that happen. There's been some dirt released. There's been dirt offered to me, and I'm like, I'm not interested. Thank you very much. And so I can speak from experience. Yes, they will tar you with a very dirty brush if you cross them. Have they threatened me? Yeah. Not in so many words, but it's like, you enjoy going to the NRA annual meetings. And I'm like, hey, if I don't go, I'm going to be okay. I didn't go last year, and I didn't die. Unfortunately, and you throw your voodoo doll away. But, what's happened, in effect, is they've swapped one set of Dr. Evil-type brains for another. And Mr. Brewer is running the NRA at this point because he's in control. He has to be. You have to trust your counsel. And is that a smart idea? No. Is the NRA historically known for making smart ideas? No, any more than they're known for background checks on people they hire. They would know this person is a disaster.
Yeah.
They hire them and then they investigate them. That's backwards, too. And the board should not permit anybody to be hired that hasn't had a background check and passed it. You can't just say the director wants him, so we're going to hire him. It doesn't work that way, or it shouldn't.
Yeah.
It shouldn't work that way. And the problem that the board members face at this point is, what do we do to make this right? You can still fix it. The problem is your personal liability will not go away. And you know as well as I do, having served on not-for-profit boards, I don't serve on any board until I see their E&O and D&O insurance, directors and officers.
Yep.
Am I insured against being sued personally? Well, guess what? The NRA situation has gotten so bad they don't have D&O insurance right now. They can't get it.
Oh, wow. That's not good.
No, that's really not good. And the old rule of law, find the deepest pockets and empty them, comes into effect. So it's not going to clear itself up, no matter what happens. If the NRA gets away with the bankruptcy filing in Texas, if it survives the scrutiny of the court, the judge says, okay, this is a good faith filing, and I'm going to ignore the fact that you didn't follow 3/4 of the procedures. You didn't have a company withstanding for 6 months. You had it for 2 weeks. We're going to ignore all of that. We're going to let this bankruptcy proceed. That doesn't mean New York goes away. It just means that New York has to work a little harder.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that the problems stop. And it does not mean that a lot of the leaders of the industry are going to get off the wallets. Here's a secret that not a lot of people have talked about. There are a lot of, if you're in the NRA, you've seen these people at the annual meetings in the gold jackets. I thought it was a Century 21 thing being held coincidentally, but it wasn't. And it turns out anybody who's wearing one of those gold jackets has given $1 million to the NRA or more.
Oh, okay.
The gold jackets are sitting on their wallets. They're not giving money. There are companies that have hundreds of thousands, if not billions, of dollars earmarked for the NRA. They're not giving them until they straighten the place up.
Yeah.
The NRA spent more money in the last election cycle on lawyers than they did on the election.
Yeah.
That's why it turned out the way it did. The NRA is counted on as a swing in a close election. We were let down, and we're all paying the price for it.
Yep. Well, Jim, I have to say, when we're talking about repercussions and retribution, let me just go on record here saying if they bring out dirt on me, I did it. Whatever you want to say, I probably did it. No farm animals were involved, but anything else, I did it.
Let me add this admonition. No matter what you found out about me, I'm capable of worse.
No comment. No, absolutely no comment right there.
It's like, okay, all right. My theory about this is if you're going to come at me for telling the truth, come at me. Because I believe if you tell the truth will come out.
Yeah.
The truth will set you free, or it will put you where you belong. The thought I want to leave with everybody is this. As good as the NRA has been at protecting our Second Amendment right over the past 2 decades, how good would they have been if the money had been spent the way it was supposed to have been spent? How much more effective could we have been?
Excellent point, and one that causes great pause. So that's a great place to stop because we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. One point I wanted to get to was
people will get madder and madder.
Oh,
and
exactly. They just need to go read the transcripts. We've stuck just to factual stuff. It's like turning over a big rock. There's stuff there. But in closing, I don't have the answers. I don't know how to fix this. It's a huge mess, but I do know at this point I am firmly convinced Wayne LaPierre needs to go, and the members and just the shooting community as a whole need to raise their voices and make sure that happens. Your thoughts?
It's a great order. There was nothing wrong with the membership. There was nothing wrong with a lot of the people, but there have been some bad decisions made by people who need to leave. And yes, I believe it's past time for Wayne to retire. Do I want to see his head on a stick? No. I just want him to stop hurting an organization I care about when he thinks he's helping. He's not.
Let's talk about, you are the publisher of the Outdoor Wire and several other wires. How can folks learn more about that?
Well, they can go to the secret website, which is theoutdoorwire.com. And they can see the latest edition. They can go to the little button that's up there at the top that says subscribe. Click that button, and you will go to a landing page where you will fill in your name and I believe your email. We used to ask for zip code, and people think we're, getting some sort of a private thing, so we quit doing that. And underneath that information is a set of check boxes for all of the wires that you would like to get. And they cost exactly the same There's no cost to a subscriber. The costs are paid by the corporations that support us to distribute their information and by advertising. And you'll get it. And if you don't like it, there's another button at the bottom that says unsubscribe. It'll take you off as easily as it took you in. So,
well, Jim, thanks for talking to us, and hopefully we'll have a little more upbeat, uplifting topic next time we talk. So take it easy, buddy.
It's going to be hard to convince anybody of this. I'm normally a pretty jolly guy.
Yeah, you are. You are, and so am I. But this is just it is.
But sometimes, good people have to talk about unpleasant things occasionally.
I'm going to end today's discussion by asking that you don't take our word for it, but go find the transcripts yourself and read them. If it doesn't make you hopping mad, I'll be surprised. And with that, we hope you're enjoying the Guns Magazine podcast. Please tell all your friends, even those humor-impaired liberals. Guns Magazine was first in the business, and we're using our decades of friendships to bring you the most interesting chats in the gun world. If you've got questions or comments about the show, please email me. That's editor@gunsmagazine.com. Make sure you don't miss out on anything by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast catcher, YouTube, and of course, at gunsmagazine.com. And while you're online, don't forget to check out our great sister publication, American Handgunner Magazine, at americanhandgunner.com. We'd also appreciate it if you'd share a favorite episode or some kind words on your own social media. And finally, I'd like to remind you to check out our sponsor, the guys and gals who really know accuracy, at Berger Bullets. Learn more at bergerbullets.com. That's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. For the entire staff at FMG Publications, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent T. Now get out there and get shooting.